So, okay. So here we're going to start with Mishnah Gimel over here in Perik Beis of Nizikin. So we know that if the animal that does damage acts in a normal way, in other words, we expect her to act that way, that means that the owners have to pay. Because if you put down food, the animal is going to eat it. So you can't say later, oh, it ate up my food. If you are in the public domain, now you have to watch your ox not to come into your animal not to come into my property. That would be your responsibility. But if an animal goes and does damage in the normal way, and it's responsible for it, then the owner has to pay the full damages. Why? Because you should anticipate that's what the animal does. The animal does its natural thing. It eats, that's what it does. But what happens if the animal gores, say, for example? So that is not considered to be natural. And therefore, then you would not have to pay the full payment, then you only pay half of the payment. Because you haven't argued the first three times that it does unnaturally, then you would have to pay only half a damage. Why? Because you didn't really know that you have to watch your animal. You didn't have to expect this, that they're going to do that. So here the Mishnah said,
Yeah. 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 1 second. I close it? Yeah. Just maybe just close the one because otherwise they people boil it there. It's down.
therefore, the Mishnah says, what happens in a situation? There was Hakelev v'Hagedi. Shekofzu mereish hagag. You have a dog, or you have uh, a goat, and in the olden days they had like the rooftops that weren't so high, and the dog and the goat were hanging around, and then they jump off from the roof, the shibru esakelim, and they broke the vessels when they jumped down. So in your property, like next to your house, there's another house, and that has a roof over there, and the dog and the goat jumped from that place, and they jumped uh, on your kalim, and they broke them. So then the halacha is mishalim nezik shalom. They pay a full damage. Why? Because you have to expect the dogs and the goats, they will jump. And if they broke something when they fell, that's expected. Mishalim nezik shalom. Mipnei shehem odim. Because they are like warned. They expectation. You should expect that amua that they'll jump. Rashi, the Batnura says mipnei shehem odim likpoitz. And Rashi explains Ubirshus Hanizika Omar. We're talking about the damages that they did were vessels that were in the property of the person. There was his damages in his property. Uh, that is the tool of the regel. That's the derivative of regel. Regel means the animal when it walks. If anything that it's under its feet is going to trample, you're going to, if you let your animal into somebody else's property and your animal walks, and as it's walking it breaks something, you should expect that's what animals do. They walk, they don't look, they don't stop for things. They're going to go right over it, they're going to break it. So you let your ox into somebody else's property, you are going to be responsible because you had to know that when the animal walks, it's going to trample on it. The same thing is if you let the goat and the dog onto the roof to play over there, you should know that they're going to jump. That's what they do. And that's their nature. That's just like tul to the regel. That's the way they behave. And therefore, you'd have to pay a nezek sholem, a complete nezek. Now, what happens if they jumped into the public domain? Then you be potter because the animal has a right to be there and to jump there just like do. You have to watch. Don't put your vessels in the middle of the public domain because if an animal walks there, or in this case, the animal jumps, which it does its normal thing, it's going to break it. So it's your responsibility. Now, here the Mishnah gives another example. So you have a piece of bread that is going on, that is burning on the grill. Okay, so the dog Hakelev Shenotol Charora. He took the piece of bread that was it. He wants to eat it, but the bread from the has some still some coals on it, some fire on it. So v'holach lagodish, he goes to a granary. There is like a storage where you keep, but the bread wasn't totally extinguished yet. And what happened? Charora zekt Rashi, that's a ugo shenefis al gabi kecholim. A charora, that is a ugo, that's a piece of a cake that is baked on coals. So he took that. So what happened? Ochalas acharora. He ate up that piece of cake. He ate it up because it was tasty. The piece of baked what was baking. But v'hidlik es hagodish. He put on fire the granary. He burned down the whole granary because that piece had a fire in it. So then, like this. So we split up the damage over here. Allah charoro mishalim nezek sholem. For the bread that it ate, you have to pay. Now, he went into your property, you were grilling, the animal went in there. So he went into your property. So you have to pay for a full mezek because you can't let your animal, an animal is going to eat. That's what it does. So therefore, you're going to pay the full price of that cake, what it ate up. Allah charora mishalim nezek sholem, zog the bartanura the havishem birshus. That's like the tooth in the domain of the one who was damaged. It's his property. He was cooking his cake over there. Your animal came in, had no right to be there, and you had to watch your animal, and your animal went and ate it up, so you're going to have to pay. But v'al hagodish mishalim chatzi nezek. But the godish, the fire that he caused and that he burned down the person's granary where he keeps or stocks all of his grain, you'll pay a chatzi nezek. Why? So Rashi, the Bartur explains that's a separate halacha. Normally, but because what it turns out, uh, you didn't directly put on fire. You had a piece of bread. The piece of bread had fire on it. And that fire caught in the granary. There's a special concept that if the animal walks and it kicks a stone, there's one way the animal can do is kick with its foot. But what happens that it didn't kick directly with its foot, but it kicked a pebble, it kicked a stone. And then that pebble went and did damage. That's called tsroiris. Tsroiris is pebbles, which means indirectly. That is the Havi Kemei Tsroiris. That, in this case, the piece of bread is what he was damaging. And now it came out from it the fire to the Godish because the bread had a fire. That is like Tsroiris, like pebbles. The Hilchasa Gemirila Shemesham Chetzi Nozik. That's a tradition we have that you only pay a Chetzi Nozik. It's not illogical because technically, why you should be a regular regal. The Gemara says, we learn it out. The Torah says you're exempt if you didn't directly, but you did it through Tzroiris. That's what the Mishnah says. Mishnah Dalet. Zog the Mishnah, Ezehu Tam, Ve'ezehu Muad. What is a Tam? I mean, when are you a Tam? Now we said a Tam is the first 3 times, it seems, right? Is it the first 3 days? Is it the first 3 times? We'll see a machlokes in the Mishnah. When is he a tam? When does he become a muad?
Right.
Zog the mission like this. Muad kol sheheidu boy shloisha yomim. If they testify 3 times about him, right? So let's say the animal gored once on Sunday, then he gores once on Monday and once on Tuesday. That's 3 days. Then he becomes a muad. But if, let's say, the animal gored on the Sunday 1, 2, 3 times, then you're not going to say he's not a muad. You're going to say, well, something crazy went into the ox head that he started goring that day. That doesn't make him for a muad. In order to become a muad, meaning that you have to expect that your ox is going to gore, the ox needs to do it in 3 separate days. That establishes the fact that this ox is not a normal ox, it gores, and therefore it becomes a muad. So he says again, Ezehu tam ve'ezehu muad. Muad kol shehi'idu bo shloisha yomim. You have to testify by him for 3 days. He does that crazy things 3 days at a time. Then we know that he's a muad. V'tam, when does he become back a tam? Mishayachzer bo shloisha yomim. He has to go 3 days that he sees oxen and he doesn't gore. So it can't be 3 oxen in one day. You have to be if he gored Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, he has to see oxen, not gore them. Then we say no, he's back to normal. That was crazy. That is the way to go back to become a tam. So he says, he sees oxen, doesn't gore them. He goes back to his innocence. And now, if he will gore again, you're only going to pay 50% because you didn't know again, because you thought that he's innocent. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Meir says, Muad shehi'idu boy shloisha pa'amim. A muad is you testify 3 times. It doesn't have to be 3 days. It doesn't matter the days. 3 times he did it, it becomes a muad. Shloisha pa'amim va'afilu b'yayim echad. Even if in one day, if he gores 3 oxen in one day, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to say it's a craziness happened. We're not going to be making him into a muad. But according to Rabbi Meir, we don't care over how many days. Even if on one day, if he gores 3 times, he becomes a muad, and the next time he's going to have to pay a nezek shalom, a full damages for the damage done. And the Rabbi Tanura says, "Ve'ein halacha ki Rabbi Meir." The halacha is not like Rabbi Meir, that you do need 3 to loy havi muad ad sheyidu by shloisha yomim. He doesn't become a muad until you testify for him 3 days. 3 times is not enough. It has to be over 3 days. Now, how does it become? He also argues about how to become a tam. He says, "V'tam, when does he become a tam? Kol sheyeh hoy hatenekes mimash mishim boy ve'ein negech." If a situation where the children keep on playing with the ox and he doesn't gore them, so they're playing with him, that means that he's no longer a violent ox. So Rashi, the Bartanura, mimash mishim boy, means moshchin, so they pull him, umesachkim boy, and they play with him. Ve'ein negech, it doesn't gore. So the Bartanura, ubaha. In this case, halacha get a meir. Over here, the halacha is like Rameir. She'ein shoir muad chayzel letamusei, that a ox that has been established that he's a muad, which of course we said 3 days, he does not become back just by 3 and not goring. Ad sheyu tunekis misachki boy. The level we need the children to be playing with him. That means that he's no longer a violent ox and he's okay. All right. All right. Maybe we'll leave over here today. Hold on 1 second.